You're listening to episode 374.
Welcome to Transforming Missions podcast, providing you with insights and resources you need to lead a movement of Jesus followers. Today we're talking about something that is part of the DNA of healthy leadership and faithful ministry. It's called collaboration.
And collaboration is more than a buzzword. For the church, collaboration is both a theological commitment and a practical strategy. So here's my confession and why this is top of mind for me. I mentioned in last week's email that I'm moving from Columbus to Cincinnati to serve both the West Ohio Conference and be a part of launching Resurrection Mason, a new United Methodist church, along with our colleague, Jen Lucas. Resurrection Mason is a new church affiliated with the United Methodist Church of the Resurrection in Leawood, Kansas. So we're figuring out all sorts of systems and processes and doing it at a distance, and I'm at a distance from Cincinnati on top of that. Well, I try to find a place to live, pack for the move, and...
So you can't do all that alone, can you?
I might be independent, but I'm not stupid. So no, I can't do it all alone, and I wouldn't want to try. For instance, I'd gladly hand over the moving part to anybody willing to make that move for me. But in all seriousness, collaboration has been top of mind for me because of the ministry in Mason, Ohio. So today we're going to walk through 5 ways the church can collaborate. And our challenge to you is to pick one. You don't need to do all 5, and we're going to have 5 more for you next week. So don't let this list overwhelm you. It's simply to help you generate ideas and to pick one and act on it.
So the first opportunity to collaborate may or may not be obvious, but you collaborate with community partners. This means you know who your community partners are.
That would be a good place to start. You're going to partner with the community. So you might need to set up some meetings, have some conversations, meet people and invite them to share their perspectives on the needs in your community.
Yeah, I think last weekend I shared about 2 school partnerships, 2 different churches, but school partnerships. They're great places to collaborate, and whether it's an ongoing tutoring, mentoring opportunity, whether it's a one-time event or opportunities to be a blessing by collecting needed resources, you can make a difference.
And once you determine the needs in your community, there are likely organizations that are already doing something to address the need. See if you can help out with that organization. You don't have to start something new. The example I often use on this one is New Life Furniture in Cincinnati or the Columbus Furniture Bank in, Columbus. Both organizations provide furniture to help people establish housing for the first time. They also offer bedding and basic supplies to individuals establishing their home. In this instance, the church can collaborate through volunteering by collecting items in need and sharing about the resource. So let's say you get new furniture. Well, New Life Furniture would come to your home, pick up your old furniture, and then that furniture is used in the apartment of someone who is establishing housing for the first time, often out of a shelter or something of that nature.
So one of the things I think about is school collaboration. Think about a back-to-school bash where a church teams up with a local nonprofit nearby school, and instead of just handing out backpacks, and I said it just the way I wanted to say it, instead of just handing out backpacks, create a community event that reflects shared values. It's not just outreach, it's a partnership.
That's a good reminder. And I hope you'll hear as we walk through each of these examples that there's relationship there. That it's not just the doing for, it's how can we be in relationship with the people that we're collaborating with.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the thing about relationship because it's not transactional. It's actually out of that relationship it becomes transformational.
And it's also the part of collaboration that can get sticky and cause things to take a little bit longer than you might want to take. Is there anything more you want to say about that first one, or are we ready to move on to number 2?
Let's move on to number 2.
Okay. As church leaders, this one is simple and it can also be powerful. The second way to collaborate that we lift up is to use your platform to highlight other ministries, leaders, churches, and nonprofits doing amazing work.
Yeah, whether it's in a sermon, a social media post, or your newsletter, some kind of shout out can encourage a weary leader and help your people see that the kingdom is bigger than one congregation. So let's say you have a vacation Bible school coming up and you have a mission project to go along with it. What might happen if you highlighted the ministry partner in the sermon? Or again, it's a simple shout out rather than an announcement. You invite the congregation to participate alongside the kids. You might even get a little friendly competition going between the adults and the children.
As long as there's no pie in the face of the pastor if the kids win or a dunk tank.
Sarah will put interim back in front of my position if that happens.
I thought so. We moved through that one quickly. Are we good to move on to number 3?
We are, but I just think we may not take the importance of that one as greatly as it is. We in the church take words as being important, and so being able to express, whether it's sermon or whether it's in writing, we can go a long way with our words.
Yeah, and it's a very easy way, given all of the different places that we have in the church that we communicate with people, it's a very easy way to lift up a partner that you're collaborating with. Take the example of what I said about New Life Furniture. Now, those of you that are in Charleston, West Virginia, no, you're not going to have somebody from Columbus or Cincinnati come to pick up your furniture. But anybody listening in those 2 communities, if they go, oh, wait, we just bought a new couch. I didn't know about the Columbus Furniture Bank. Now you have a resource and you've just connected another person to that partner. And all I did was simply name it.
And so what you just did for me is I'll be listening now for a place in Charleston.
Yeah, and I'm sure
for furniture.
And I'm sure that it exists. Yeah, the power of words it's a simple way to lift up collaboration and remind people of the partnerships that we're involved in. Anything else on that one?
No, let's go to number 3.
So the third opportunity to collaborate, and this one I kind of love because I'm thinking about new things. And when I think about the local church and all of the people that we have in our churches that are related to different aspects of our communities, the church is really well positioned to curate and share a community resource guide. So here's what I'm imagining on this one. Imagine a faith and family guide for your neighborhood. What would happen if a local church published something for families that helped them learn about the resources, the opportunities, the connection points in your community that are focused on the family? So it might be everything from daycare facilities and preschools to special events for children's opportunities for kids to get connected to performing arts, since we mentioned Vacation Bible School and the other one. Vacation Bible School that's coming up, or any other children's ministry or student or youth ministry opportunity that you have going on. And this could be online, but it's something that you help put together by reaching out into the community to say, hey, folks, what's happening? Here's what we're putting together. And it's likely a lot of those resources are already known sitting in the seats in your congregation.
So you got me thinking. So we can imagine a faith and family guide. What about a holiday helping hands list that highlights the organizations, the events, or service opportunities in the area? Because when you curate with care, you become a trusted guide. And that would make sense. And I'm thinking particularly about a ministry at the church where I am, where there are people who are living on the margins And if there was some way that we in the church could even say to them, here's a way we can help you other than handing out money,
Right.
that would be a great way
Right.
of collaboration.
And think about that guide. If people during the holidays are going to that, let's just say it's a page on your website to find resources, and then they're having a conversation with a loved one or thinking to themselves, I really want to go someplace for worship on Christmas Eve. Where do you think they're going to most likely go? They're going to come to your church. And so it's a simple way, again, you're collaborating with a broader community, but it's also a way to help position the church. I don't mean that to sound manipulative, but that's what you're doing. You're positioning the church as a community partner. So yes, anything that will help the community get connected to local resources and the businesses in your community. Imagine the connections that you could make in the community if you put something like that together. And as we're recording this, it's the end of May, so start now because Advent's going to be here before we know it.
It's only 6 months away. So I'm thinking that as you're making the connections with local resources and businesses, I'm going back to that local school again. Schools are always looking for partners, and whether it's a church or a business, and then all of a sudden you're in collaboration with more than one organization.
Right.
And that makes a big deal. That's
Right.
a big deal.
Well, and it very well could be that you're having a conversation with the school, and then there's another conversation going on with the business, and what the school needs, the business can provide.
Exactly.
And so you're helping to make that connection and a natural introduction of, okay, here are resources and here are needs, and you're bringing them together.
And Sarah, I just want to emphasize what you're saying there, because oftentimes in the church, we feel like it's just us. And here you have an opportunity to bring together different entities to create a partnership. I think that's what I'm hearing and feeling good about with our conversation.
Maybe this is the point for us to hit the pause button and answer the question, why would we want to do this? Why would we even want to collaborate? And how I would answer that question is, it's because of our relationship with Jesus that we're then responding out of that love to love others and to love our community. So we're not having a conversation today about, here, you need more things to do. None of us do. No church needs more things to do. This is who God created us to be. And so how can we best live into being the people that God created us to be? That's really what this is about. Now, I don't know how you'd answer that question.
Well, I'm going to emphasize what you've said and just say, not to make it better, but to add my little piece to it. And that is, just being who we're supposed to be is enough. And I think sometimes we forget that loving like Jesus has loved us, or loving us the way we've been loved, is too simple. I think we need to remind ourselves that if we are just who we're supposed to be, we'll find ways to make the connection so people can know God's love
Right.
in the ways that make a difference.
Right.
So you ready to go to the next one?
Sure.
Well, number 4 is similar to what we had in number 2, but it has a different twist to it. Let someone else's story be part of your story. Share a testimony of impact or highlight a ministry where you've been collaborating during worship. The focus here is on the impact. So how are you collaborating to make an impact? What I'll say, Sarah, that in the church where I am now, we've made a little impact on a water issue in southern West Virginia. And number one, we didn't really know much about it. When we began to talk about it, it became something that people wanted to respond to. And now we realize that even as much as we responded to and collaborating with several organizations, and one of them being Global Ministries and Disaster Response in West Virginia, but those are two, we've found out that our little piece to that is not enough to really make a dent in the problem. So we're thinking about how we might even take another step in that. But that's in conversation with these other organizations that are working.
Yeah. And so build on that example. What would happen if you were able to have, and I don't know if this is even a possibility, so just take it as an example, one of the families that now has the ability to have clean water, and you just had a conversation with someone at some point in time, and then they're telling you the difference that is made in their lives, and that story gets shared. There's an impact, the transformation that has happened because of that ministry, because of that partnership. How has someone's life been changed? I can only imagine not having clean water and what that would mean in day-to-day life. And then the difference that it makes in just everyday, ordinary life to be able to have clean drinking water and clean water to cook with and clean water to all the things that we do with water.
So, and here's a place that collaboration may even go deeper, and that is with the example of just providing water bottles for people to have water in southern West Virginia. That's a humanitarian effort because people don't have water. What would it be if you took it to the place of making it a justice issue, and you're talking with somebody in the state legislature and having them come to the church or meet with a group of people who have that interest and helping them understand how the difference can be made just by government agencies making a little contribution toward clean water in a certain area. There are lots of other things. Clean water may be one of them, but in any area that you live in, one of the true and tried agencies that any church can collaborate with is Habitat for Humanity. And we don't have to go through all the ways you can do that, but that's a great way. And for United Methodist churches to collaborate with global ministries with providing resources for hospitals in third world countries. And I know Liberia and Ganta Hospital particularly. So, and then in local congregations, just collaborating with those elementary schools or those high schools, it takes a little effort, and it takes more than one shot at it. I'm going to say something that I'll need to be forgiven for, but I've always been a little irritated with some of my colleagues when I say, have you had a conversation with the principal? Yeah, but they weren't interested. How many times did you talk to them? Well, I didn't really talk to them. I just had somebody ask a question, and they said they weren't interested. It's going to take more than that. That's not collaboration. So forgive me. When we do make those connections and we can tell the stories, it's a transformational experience.
Right. And that's what number 4 is all about. It's about highlighting the impact on a life or community because of the collaboration. And the caution that I would offer on this one is this isn't about patting yourself on the back and saying, aren't we great for being a part of this? This is about saying, look how God's moving in and through this organization that we had the privilege of partnering with. Another twist that I'll add to this one is it doesn't have to take over a sermon. It doesn't have to take over an announcement. It can be a 60-second spotlight, a slide during an announcement, or a brief story during an offering that's going to help connect people to the broader mission that you are a part of.
Yeah, I like that. But in the church where I am now, and I'm sorry, I keep talking about them, but they're the only ones I know at the moment. We have what we call an assistance ministry. And once a month, we have the director of that assistance ministry give a little announcement in worship. It comes when I'm giving announcements. And I always say, Shirley's here this morning to tell us about the assistance ministry. As she's coming forward to tell us the story, I'm going on with other announcements.
Right.
So when I says it's time to listen to Shirley, she's there and it gets to happen. So it's a matter of making it all a part of the whole life of the congregation and not just feeling like it's an unnecessary add-on.
Right. Anything else that we want to say about number 4?
Haven't I said enough? It's all about making it part of the life of the congregation, and that's sharing the story is a big way to do that.
And I'll make a statement there of a statement of the obvious to Mr. Storyteller himself. Stories speak to people, and stories help people to understand what transformation is happening. It's different to tell. I'm thinking about some of the things that I've heard Shirley mention. So imagine having surgery and you've not been able to work, and all of a sudden your utilities are going to get cut off. So you're trying to recover and get well, and you're not going to have any electric, not going to have any gas, not have any water. That makes a huge difference in the life, in that individual's life. Saying that versus saying, this Sunday is our Sunday to collect money for the assistance ministry. Yes, that always gets added at the end, but that's not the main point of what is said, because people can't connect to, oh, put money in the bucket. I don't know how you all collect the money. So forgive me for saying it that way. Put money in the plate, whatever it might be, versus here's an individual's life that because of your giving has changed.
So it goes back to, again, what we said earlier in this episode, and it goes back to relationship. And you've reminded me of one way that we've done that, and that is assistance ministry is not just a ministry we do on Tuesdays. Even when we pray, I say we're going to pray for our congregation that meets on Tuesdays.
Right.
These are the people who come for assistance.
Yeah.
And it's the same as any requests we give on Sunday morning for prayer.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, now we're going to move on to the fifth way. A fifth way to collaborate, and this one hits close to home for me, is to support new ministries like they're your own. As Resurrection Mason prepares to launch in October, I have felt the encouragement from all across the West Ohio Conference and Resurrection out in Leawood.
And Sarah, am I correct in saying it's not just moral support? It's showing up, praying, sharing social media posts, it's inviting others. All of those things add up. And if every church in the district supported another church's ministry and launching a new church, what difference would that make?
Yeah, I'm thinking about some of the conversations that I've had, and I'm also thinking of a phrase that I've heard. It's more than a phrase. It's a question that I've heard you ask over and over again. And the question is, what can I do to be helpful? That's what I have heard over and over again from people around the conference, people out at Resurrection. What's the help that you need? How can we be helpful? What do you need right now? It makes a huge difference. This is going to sound silly, but we needed logos. We needed a logo to be able to start putting the logo on everything from our giving page to a sign out front to what we're handing out to people to we've got an event coming up this summer that we're going to have t-shirts made. That's what I need. Okay, you're making the logo for me. Thank you. And it seems like a simple thing, but it's huge. You've asked a question and here's something that is needed. Another example, and this just happened last week before last, one of the new churches in West Ohio is starting on the campus of Ohio State. And last week they had a giving campaign. I think it was to raise $5,000. It might have been $10,000. And it was a matching donation situation. And all over Facebook last week, there were posts about the church at Ohio State and this campaign that was running. Now, the posts were from colleagues of ours, other pastors who are not pastoring this church on Ohio State, but they were supporting what was happening there. They're not going to be a part of it when it launches. They're not going to be the feet on the ground in the midst of it, but they were sharing it with people on social media, knowing darn well that there were an awful lot of people all across Ohio who either have kids or grandkids that they might be sending to Ohio State, that they might want to make a little donation to support that ministry at that new church at Ohio State.
Sarah, you've been working on something in the West Ohio Conference called circuits. And this is one of the places that churches can actually work together to collaborate in ministry in a geographic location. And that's what comes to mind when we start talking about this.
Yeah. So imagine five to 10 churches in an area, and a new ministry is happening. And it doesn't even have to be new. I'm saying new because that's the lens that I'm looking through right now. But let's go back to the assistance ministry. What would happen if other churches around the greater Charleston area said, what are the other needs that you all hear about on Tuesday? And how can we be helpful? I'm thinking back to a school partnership that you and I were both a part of. You might have even mentioned it on Sunday, where it started as we're reading buddies and math buddies to second and third graders. And then that expanded really into someone coaching a basketball team, which meant the kids needed physicals. And now all of a sudden you have doctors and nurses who are providing physicals for the kids so that they can participate in basketball. I'm thinking the same thing for an assistance ministry. One thing leads to another. And what might happen if the question was asked, what else are you hearing and how can we be helpful? And there were other churches participating. Now, there very well might be something that Christ Church could be doing with other churches. I'm only bringing up the assistance ministry because it was just mentioned.
You're asking a great question, and I'm going back to ask that question with the folks at the assistance ministry. That I think they would welcome the opportunity to collaborate with other churches at that point.
Anybody who has been a part of a local church and has been involved in leading a local church knows that there are more needs around us than any one church could address all on their own. So what might begin to happen if a few conversations started to evolve? And at first, it might not go anywhere. You might look at one another and go, we don't know. But if you keep asking the question and keep it in front of people, I can almost guarantee people are going to go, oh, how'd we miss that? Part of what we're hearing, and hear me, I don't know that this is the need, so it's simply an example. Part of what we're hearing is as the weather gets cold, people do not have winter coats. And we would love to be able to say to folks, there is a closet right over there. You are welcome to help yourself to one of them so that this winter you'll be warm. We can't take on one more thing, but that would be a wonderful thing for us. Hats and mittens might be another. Again, not saying that's what the need is. And we always want to address a need, not just come up with a good idea of like whether that was a good idea or not isn't the point. But it's just Sarah's idea. I don't know that's a need.
Well, but you've raised a good question, and that's part of this collaboration. And that is, we start with the need and then become who we're supposed to be in meeting the need. So it's not like we're sitting around in a room and saying, what can we do? And say, well, I think this.
Right.
I think it's, again, in relationship with people who have the need.
Right.
And people laugh when I say this, but it's not always the down and out that have a need. It's the up and out that have a need.
Oh, in the community that I'm going to, where the church sits, literally right across the parking lot, is a 3rd through 6th grade school. On one side of the school, it's 3rd and 4th grade. On the other side of the school, closest to the church, it's 5th and 6th grade. And I was having a conversation with one of the teachers who's also going to be a part of the church last week. And it was the last week of school. And teachers, God bless you, the last week of school, because there wasn't enough time for them to be out on the playground to get all of their energy out. And what she said to me was, part of what I have realized this week is some of the behavior of the kids is because a safe place is coming to an end. And I began to think, what does a safe place look like for summertime for kids in the up and out community of Mason, Ohio. Teacher, firsthand knowledge. She knows what's going on. She recognizes it. She sees it every stinking day. And she knew exactly what was happening in the lives of some of those kids. There's a need. I don't know how that need gets addressed, but she named it.
Wonderful example. So let me go one step further with that. So as all of you who are listening begin to have conversations with the people with whom you are leading, think about this question, not as a question of doing something in a vacuum, but in a question of what Sara has just raised, is what do we need to do that no one else is doing? From my perspective, and I may be very narrow at this point, but from my perspective, it's very easy for us to say, well, we can start a food pantry, or it's very easy that we can do this. The coat thing's a good thing, but it's easily done that we can bring those coats. What do we need to do that no one else is doing? We've got children that live in the neighborhood that aren't going to be safe.
Right.
So what do we need to do to help bring about care for children? We know in our culture, and I'm not going to say this in the right way, but we know in our culture that children are somewhat of a throwaway. And maybe that's what we need to begin to collect, is children.
Yeah. And I think for me, when I stop and think about it, I had a wonderful home that I grew up in, all the love that I could ever want and all the parents that I could ever need, because I had neighbors who also acted as my parents. And I want nothing less than that for every child. Like, a child should not need to be anxious to be at home. A child should always have a safe place to be. Like, that should be a no-brainer. And so if it means opening up a gymnasium for kids to come play, let's open up a gymnasium. If it means going out to the playground across the way from us and saying we're going to be there every, God help me that I'm saying this out loud, every Monday through Friday between 1 and 3 o'clock, go out and play on the playground. I don't know what that looks like, but if we can't care for our children and make sure that they're safe and cared for, what are we doing? Yeah.
So now all of you who are listening know why we're talking about collaboration. And hopefully in what we've said in these 5 ways to collaborate in ministry has raised something within you that you can have some conversations with others. I want to tell you about something that Sara developed, and we've used it over the years, and it's called 7 missional questions.
Oh, there's a throwback.
But those 7 missional questions will get you into relationship with the community if you follow through, because you're talking to people in the community. You're finding out what some of the needs are, and you're going to find out what my pet ministry is, and that is getting related to those schools and with the children in those schools.
Right.
So we've offered you 5 ways to collaborate in ministry today, and next week we'll have 5 more opportunities or ideas to share with you. And Sara, you're the one that usually does this, but I'm going to say, if you all have some ideas or you want to discuss some ideas, why don't you just let us know?
We'd be happy to.
Our 5 today and 5 next week are not the 5 all or the 10 all to end all.
Right.
And we're having conversation, and we're living in a time that if the church can't collaborate with the community or with the people around the church, I'm asking you, why do you even gather to meet?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is an opportunity is provided for us, not because everything's going well, but because it seems to be coming apart. and we need to step in the gap. And what Sara and I are trying to do with the podcast for these 2 weeks, if not every week, is to help you step into that gap in a way that's going to make a difference. Did I jump ahead of us there?
That is very well said. And all that I would add is we'll link to the 7 missional questions on the show notes page so that you can download those questions. And it is written on the document, but I will say it here as well. They are not questions to be answered in a classroom at the church. They are questions to be answered out in your community. They're questions to be answered by asking others the question and then zipping your lips and listening to what they're saying. And I can't help but think, going back to your circuit example and the context of West Ohio, if 25 of our circuits collaborated in one way over the course of the next year, the transformation that could happen in our communities would be greater than we could ever imagine.
And I'm going to say, Sara, if each of you who are in part of churches that are hearing us today would just enter into a partnership of collaboration over this next year, your church would experience a transformation.
Yeah.
I want to go back to 7 missional questions one time, and that is, if you have questions, if you really are serious about doing it, contact us so we can just walk with you as you do that in your community. It's that important to us. And I think it's that important, if I may say it this way, to the kingdom of God.
Yes. Happy to be of assistance there. So thank you for joining us this week for this conversation. We hope that we've prompted some things in you that will help you have some conversation with others. As a reminder, you can find show notes for this episode at transformingmission.org/374. Tim, will you send us out with a benediction?
When you leave this podcast, you're going into the mission field where people need a kind, caring, supportive, encouraging word. And God's already put that word in you through Jesus. The joy and peace of this life comes in sharing what you've received. So go in peace to experience the joy in the name of the living God who loves you in Jesus and who has empowered you to be in partnership, in collaboration with the people around you by the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.